Alright, so now we're going to take a look at some of the most common guitar chords that you're going to find in all the songs that you play. So these are all pretty easy to play. Let's go ahead and start with the F chord. This is going to be the hardest, I guess, in terms of most people think it's the hardest. Now, honestly, I don't think it's that hard. The key to playing chords, to simplify chords, is to play it with less strings and less fingers. The problem is when you look up chords on the internet and you try to look up chord charts or anything like that, they're going to show you the full shape with all the strings and more fingers and more shapes and more. Well, you need less and less and less and less. So it's the opposite way. You're going to have an easier time. So let's start with this F chord right here. First of all, we're going to play it with, I've shown you before, you could actually see the F chord guitar lesson right here. There's going to be a lot of different ways you could play this, but we're just going to start with the simple way right here. Index finger across these two. Now you don't even have to even get this string to ring out. Okay, if you only play it with 1, 2, and 3 like that, and just try to not play that string, or if you can play that string, that's going to sound better. But it's going to basically be like this. This is without the bar, and this is with the bar. So they sound really close. Now if you don't mute that, it's going to sound like that. We don't really want that. That's an F major 7. We don't really want to play that chord. So that's the F major. This is without the bar. If you're just muting the string, tell the difference is just that high note's kind of not there. Now let's play the F chord, F minor. So that's just you can even play this with one finger right here, across 3 strings. It's pretty easy. Well, you might have to develop a little strength. Squeeze this. Once you can do that, if you feel like adding the next finger, you could do that. You kind of have a lower sound. Now just keep in mind that you want to be muting the low strings up here. You don't want to be playing those, okay? That doesn't sound good. So you got to mute those strings. Now let's head over to the next couple of chords over here. These are going to be kind of harder. These are actually going in hard to less hard and less hard and less hard. We're starting with the hardest ones. It's good news. So this is a little bit easier, but it still can be kind of hard. Now the B minor, just like the A minor, right? We now actually have the same shapes as A minor if you look down below, or if you already know A minor. But you're going to shift this up 2 frets. So up here, this is going to be in, basically you see these 2 dots over here, dot and dot. It's going to be in between these dots, or like right here. This is where our B major would be. Just like that. If we're going to play the B minor, you can see we kind of have to rotate our wrist a little, flip this around, just like that. And again, we want to just kind of practice going back and forth. They're all right there. We'll switch to the B7 as well. Or sorry, the B7 is going to be like this. You have to really stretch for this one. Otherwise, you're going to play a B major 7. So if you want that chord, that's fine. This is a B7 here. A little bit of a stretch. You could also play it on the first string here and get that high note. I didn't mark this here, but it's just going to be, it's harder because now you have to mute this string, or you'd have to play the string and now you get this. That'd be even harder. So that's going to be kind of interesting to play there. 2 fingers, add the ring. It's not tabbed out here, but hey, you know. I think it's a little bit harder to play that than it is to play this. But I think a lot of people might have a little bit of a stretching problem. So B7 is a difficult chord to play. You also play it over here with different shapes. I think that's actually B major 7. Regardless, let's head over to the next chord because, you know, these are pretty easy. Let's head over to the G. Problem with the G is that it takes 4 fingers, and I don't really have a problem with this. But if you have an issue with 4 fingers. You can play it with 2. Alright. Now that's also gonna be hard to play G7, so you'd have to switch this around. G and the G7. And that's why these chords are a little hard, because you have to move all of the fingers together and move it all, and like, it's hard. Okay, and then our G minor over here. G minor is going to be a totally different position. So the problem with these open chords is that you can't play them with the same shape. Like, you have to keep shifting your hand around. That's why I don't like open chords that much. I don't really use them all that much. Sometimes I do, but not that much. So I prefer to use inversions up in other positions, because that way the shapes are all the same, and you literally just move your hand, okay? And that's pretty easy. But to play these open chord positions like this, and like this, and then over here with this minor thing, well, this isn't even an open chord, but this one is an open chord, and this one's an open chord. And it's like so hard to switch between these two positions. Right, and you really got to get them down if you want to play any chords. Like, how are you gonna play chord progressions if you can't do that? It's gonna be so hard to switch between chords. And I am gonna show you how to do that, how to switch faster, how to learning guitar chords. Yes, that'll happen later. But for now, you know, these are the shapes, and this one here is pretty easy. Let's head to the C over here. So you get your C. You're gonna want to shift up over here, play C minor, 3rd fret over here. You could also go back to the regular C and add a pinky, and now you get a C7. C minor. Like I said, with these open chords, like, if you're gonna play the minor version, there's only a major version of the open chord position right here. Yeah, because if you tried to play this with an open, you end up with the first string sounding out, and we can't play the E because we're playing an E flat. So we can't play the open position of C major or C minor. We have to, like, shift it and play somewhere else. So we're gonna play it up here. Okay, so that's that. Let's head over to D. Our Ds are kind of cool little triangles. And the D minor is like a mountain. You just have to remember the direction of the triangles, and remember that it's a mountain. These are going to be harder chords to play, but you know, I guess they're all pretty much about the same general level of difficulty. They all kind of have their own thing, But now, let's head into the A chords over here. This is just like the B chords. The B and the A have the same shape, so that's really cool. So here's our A major. Now we have to flip this around, play the A minor, back to A minor. For the A7, we're just gonna lift up that middle finger off of the A major, A7, major, 7. By lifting that finger. Now here, you don't want to really play the low strings. It's nice to play just higher strings when you're playing chords. Like, if you try to add in these low strings, it's like you don't really get the sound. You want to play the higher strings when you're playing all of these different chords, except for the next chord, which is E minor over here, or E. Now you want to hit the low. Alright. You could also hit the high too, though. Or the low. So the E minor is kind of nice in that way. It's really easy to play because you can use all the strings and you don't have to mute anything, and all the shapes are in the same position too, so you don't even have to move your hand. So you play E major here, you lift up the index finger to play E minor. Oh, camera issues here. And back to E major. Play the E major E7, you're going to lift the ring finger. D major, index finger, E minor. So you can see the E chords are actually really easy. So, now that you know how to play all these different chords, well, I came into this with an assumption that you had a particular chord progression that you perhaps were trying to figure out how to make the chord shapes for. As far as making chord progressions with all these different types of chords, all these random chords, keep in mind that these are somewhat random chords and random orders. I have a confession to make. It's very difficult for me to compose with these open chord shapes because I have no real gauge, no measure for like what it's going to sound like. You know, when I play chords on the guitar, I have sort of my own system for looking at it in a certain way. That allows me to sort of think about what it's going to sound like before I play it because it's in an order that I've memorized and I really understand. So if I want to go up, I go up. If I want to go down, I go down. Right? If I want to play something that's similar, I'm going to use some of the same notes. But if I start playing open chords and I try to like figure out, okay, well, what's the next open chord going to sound like? I have no metric for that. It's like a completely different shape, a completely random spot. How am I supposed to know what that's going to sound like? I don't know if I'm going up on the guitar or even down on the guitar. Like I can't even know if I'm going up in pitch or low in pitch when I'm changing between open chords because it's like, I don't know. You have no way. The fingers are all in completely random positions. So that's why you want to kind of know different ways to look at the guitar versus these open chords. I really don't like open chords. I like bar chords, power chords, inversions. Those are great. But open chords, not so good. Anyway, if you want to actually make chord progressions from chords that you know, you're going to want to sort of take a little look at this lesson on chord progressions guitar because, like I said, if you don't already have a chord progression that has these chords planned out and you try to play, like pick these at random, I'll give you an example. We'll start with a B minor right here. Here's the B minor. And then I'll just at random go to the G7, right? Wow, so luckily that actually sounded pretty cool, but that was completely random luck. Let's go to like the next chord that I'm going to play, which is going to be, let's make it a D minor, I guess. That's actually sounding pretty good. So we start from here. Almost sounds the same, kind of. So it's actually starting to work out a little bit. Maybe we'll go to the E major. We'll see if that actually works. Hey, you know, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. I was playing some other stuff, and I was like, well, this stuff doesn't really sound good at all. But this one completely randomly actually worked. B minor, G7, D minor, E major. It's whatever, it's okay. But like I'm saying, you know, it's really hard for me to know what it's going to sound like. It's hard for me to compose with these open chords. I prefer to compose with other chords, and these, maybe once you've created a chord progression, you can come back and play it with these open chords. That's how I would approach doing this. And you know, so head over to Chord Progressions Guitar to figure out how to make chord progressions.